Hi friends, hope you're having a lovely day today. I want to talk to you about editing, and specifically editing street portraits, since that's what I do around here for the most part. I want to give some tips, things that might help you. This is not an all-inclusive or exhaustive breakdown on how to edit a street portrait. These are just a couple of helpful guidelines, if you will, with subjectivity being the backbone, because with editing, there are a billion different ways you can go with something, and it's a very subjective art, just like every art form is. So, the first thing I want to touch on is shooting to edit, or in other words, make a good photo in the first place. When, I've said this before, when you shoot intentionally in the first place, your editing will be your friend. Your editing will help you elevate that photo to a new finished result place, as opposed to if you if you shoot and you do not intentionally take care of the problems that can come up when you're shooting, you will end up spending most of your time fixing the problems that you created in the first place, which is problematic. So yeah, shooting to edit, right? So if you're out on the street and you are walking up to strangers, you see backgrounds, you see all these wonderful opportunities of things to behold and begot. You focus intentionally on how this is going to play out in editing, and like I said, this just really comes down to making a good photo in the first place, thinking that way. How can I use the light most effectively? How can I use my background most effectively? How can I eliminate distraction most effectively? This and that. So I have a photo here, and this is an example of me shooting to make a good photo in the first place, shooting to edit in mind. Because even though I did overexpose this was the original spot right about there. Okay, so even though I did overexpose this just a tad, overall this was a photo that was very intentionally shot, and it came together in the end. I will win at this on some days, and I will fail at this on other days. So this is a craft to be grown. But so with this shot, what I did right was, she was in the shadows, actually behind her in this photo. You can see it's more of a shadowy area. That's where she was. She was walking in the direction of the light. So I said, "Come with me to the light. We're going to take a picture of you with the light beam." And the light worked in my benefit here, and it turned this photo, changed it from what was maybe a 5-minute edit to it changed it from what could have been a 15-20 minute edit to a 5-minute edit that was very simple. And like I said, I was spending all of my time making the photo be stylized into the way that I wanted it to be stylized. And so everything worked together in the end easily because of the way I shot. So I'm going to use one of these presets from my new preset pack sponsor, just for demonstration purposes here. And I'm going to talk about the second point, which is skin tones. I think that the goal with editing, for me personally, what I try to encourage is not to recreate the truest, rightest skin tones. That's not really what I encourage. I think that if you're after that, that's perfectly fine. But for me, what I'm interested in is creating compelling skin tones. So obviously there's a lot more subjectivity there in the language, compelling versus true, and getting out the light meters and the Kelvin and this and that. So this to me is a fairly compelling skin tone, but I'll just drop the exposure a little bit, get it more so where I want it, interesting, you know. But some people may not like the crushed highlights on the face, and that's okay, that's fine. It's subjective, it's very subjective. Some people may like this, and it's very subjective. But so yeah, focusing on that is another huge tip. I spend 80% of my time, whether I'm actually creating presets or whether I'm editing photos for my for Instagram, I am spending 80% of my time focusing on getting the skin tones looking the way that I want them to look. Next thing is to pay attention to distraction. This is something that you are shooting when you're shooting and when you're editing. Pay attention to the distractions that are afoot. So notice the language I use here. I say pay attention to distractions. I don't say eliminate distractions. I think that we get very obsessed with eliminating every possible thing that could be considered a distraction out of photos. And a lot of times having complementary elements in the background is not a bad thing at all. And sometimes it leads to what I would consider a more compelling photo. But we're very much encouraged as photographers to like crop in as close as humanly possible to the face of your subject, and just this is the photo, right? Because everything else is a distraction. I want to encourage people to pay attention to the background, be intentional, look around, operate on that mindset, and it will make your photos more compelling in the end. The next thing that I think is very important to pay attention to is balance. So the balance of your subject to the background. In this case, the photo I ended up sharing to Instagram was cropped a bit more like around this. And the reason why is because these guys are distractions that are unwanted distractions. I paid attention to them and said, I don't want you there. And also, I cropped in because I thought that having her, because she's such a compelling subject, the balance of the ratio of background and environment to person could lean way towards the person in this case, as opposed to in other situations where maybe you want a little bit more of the environment. Say you're taking a photo of a skater at a skate park, or somebody who's participating in some sort of fire dancing, if you will. If they've caught a patron on fire who is watching the fire dancing, they're part of the environment. You'd like to incorporate them into the shot. Okay, so that point's well taken, I think. So yeah, paying attention to that balance is hugely important. That's something that I focus a lot on. And yeah, the last thing that I think is important is to define your style. So every photo that I post on Instagram is I use my preset called Faded 01 from my newest preset pack. Every photo that I share runs through that. Now, I don't think that your style means that you have to use a specific preset, but be definitive in what you're trying to create, and this will help you curate your photos, and this will also help you eliminate a lot of bandwidth when you're editing. If you're focusing on a very specific, narrow style that you're trying to create with your work, as opposed to all over the place. Today I want to look like instant film. Today, I'd like it to look like portrait film. Today, I want to go black and white. Oh, let's do like some crazy like split. I want the entire photo to be red somehow. That will screw you over very quickly because you'll spend so much time editing that it will slow down your process tremendously. And in my experience, it causes me to go a bit crazy. So to create a very specific style allows me to focus on a lot of different elements, which I would like to spend more time on. So your style can be any number of things. This is a universe of opportunities, but I think that focus can be very helpful in the end. So that's it. I hope this brought you value today. I hope you enjoyed this little breakdown of how I edit my street portraits, at least. I'd love to see your feedback. Thank you for watching. Good morrow.